Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to create these color wheels and how to use them. We're going to create a warm color wheel and a cool color wheel, then put them together into a split primary color wheel. Here's a really easy way to create your color wheel. First, find the center point by measuring halfway from top to bottom and again from side to side. Now create your circle. Here I used string to create the circle. This is just a piece of yarn with some tape so I could keep it taut and a toothpick to hold it to the center point. Draw a line down the center of the circle. Find the halfway point between the center and the edge of the circle and make a mark. Do the same at the top. Draw a line across the halfway point between the center and the edge. Do the same at the top. Now draw a line from the center point to the point where the bottom line meets the circle all the way across. And do the same thing on the other side. Now draw a line across the middle. Next, make a mark halfway between the top of the circle and the point where the next line crosses the circle. Draw a line through the center to this halfway point and do the same thing on the other side. Feel free to pause the video and go back if you need to go over it again. The first thing we want to do is create two color wheels side by side on the same piece of paper, one for warm and one for cool. To create the circles for these, I traced my roll of painter's tape. I traced the outside of the roll and I traced the inside so that we could have two sections, one for the mass tone or the most vibrant concentrated form of color and one for a much lighter version using water to thin it out. Now that you have your color wheels set up, we're going to start with the warm colors. First I'm using Pyrrole Scarlet. This is a warm red by Daniel Smith. When filling in the outer sections, make sure that your color is highly pigmented. We want to see the color in its mass tone, or as concentrated a color as you can get it. On the inside, water it down so we can see the color in its much lighter form. The next color I'm using is French Ultramarine. We're going to do the same thing that we did with the Pyrrole Scarlet and fill in the outer section with the mass tone of the paint. And the same thing in the inner section with a much lighter version. The third color we'll be using here is New Gamboge. This is a warm yellow. And again, fill in the outer section with the mass tone and the inner section with a watered down version. Next, we want to create a color that looks to be about halfway between the two colors. If it doesn't look quite right, keep adjusting by adding one color or the other a little bit at a time until it does. Repeat this process for the tertiary colors in between. Now we'll do the warm blue and the warm yellow and create a green that looks to be about halfway between the New Gamboge and the French Ultramarine. You'll notice that the green here is very neutralized and muted. This is because the New Gamboge, which is a warm yellow, tends more towards the orange or red side. When you mix a blue and an orange, which are complementary colors, meaning they are on opposite sides of the color wheel, they will neutralize each other. Even though you still get a green, because you have those orange and red tones in the yellow, the green will be a lot more muted. Now we'll mix the warm red with the warm blue. As with the green, you'll notice that it's a lot more neutral. That's because the Pyrrole Scarlet has orange tones in it. And just like with the New Gamboge, mixing it with the French Ultramarine blue will create a more neutralized, muted purple. Now that we've done our warm colors, let's move on to the cool colors. On this side I'm using Hansa Yellow Light, which is a cool yellow, Quinacridone Rose, which is actually a magenta color and is going to be our cool red, and Phthalo Blue Green shade, which is a cool blue. Now we're going to repeat the steps that we did to create the warm color wheel, but this time we're going to be using the cool colors. You'll notice here that the green is much more vibrant than in the warm color palette. That's because the phthalo blue actually has some green in it, so it pulls it closer to the yellow, and the cool yellow is closer to the green as well. Combining these creates a very vibrant green. Doing this exercise is a really good way to get to know your paints and learn how to make certain colors. Something interesting that you'll notice is when we create the red-orange, it's actually a very deep red color, and you can compare it to the warm red over in the warm color wheel where we used Pyrrole Scarlet, and you'll see that it's very similar. This is why a lot of artists say that the primary colors are not red, blue, and yellow, but rather magenta, cyan, and yellow. The phthalo blue-green shade here is very close to cyan. The yellow-orange that we created is also very similar to the warm orange on the other color wheel. So what do you do with this? Well, we want to make this as vibrant as possible, so we're going to take the most vibrant sections from each color wheel and put them together in what is called a split primary color wheel. When creating your palette, you'll often want to include a warm version and a cool version of your primaries. This will help you to create a wide variety of color choices without needing to buy a bunch of paints. So I've already filled in the warm combinations and the cool combinations that you've already seen. On this split color wheel, the most vibrant section from the warm color wheel is the combination between the Pyrrole Scarlet and the New Gamboge, so I've included those here. And on the cool color wheel, the most vibrant section is between the cool blue and the cool yellow, so I've included those. However, to get the most vibrant violet shades, you want to mix a warm blue with a cool red, so that's what we're mixing here. Since you haven't seen these mixes, I'm going to show you how I created them. Using French Ultramarine Blue and Quinacridone Rose, I created a midtone between the two for this very vibrant violet. As before, you want to water it down for the inside. To make the red violet, I added more Quinacridone Rose. And to make the blue violet, or indigo, I added more French Ultramarine Blue. So here are the two color wheels. Now you can see where we got each of the combinations, and you can also see how this violet is far more vibrant than the two that we used using only cool colors and only warm colors. Having a color wheel on hand is very useful. When you get new paints, you can compare it to your cool and warm color wheels to see where it falls on the spectrum. Is it more warm or is it more cool? This will give you a really good idea of how it might mix with your other colors. Here's a few other colors that I have. The first is dioxazine purple, and if we compare it to the color wheel, you'll see that it does have much cooler tones. So when you mix it with warmer colors, you might get a bit more neutralized of a mix. The next color is Viridian Green, which is a very cool green, and you'll notice how closely it matches with the blue-green we created using Phthalo Blue, which is a cool blue, and Hansa Yellow Light, which is a cool yellow. Finally, this is Quinacridone Gold, and it's very much similar to the warm red-orange that we created. Now let's talk about a little color theory. You know that these are the primaries that you can use to create all the colors in between. If you mix one color with its polar opposite or its complementary color, the two colors will neutralize each other and create a gray tone. Here's an example. If I mix, let's go with Pyrrole Scarlet and this cool green. So let's make that cool green first. This green is made using Phthalo Blue and Hansa Yellow Light. And you see, I just barely touched the Phthalo Blue, and it's so pigmented. So that looks to be about right. And if I use the Pyrrole Scarlet, it'll create a brown-gray color. Let's do the orange and Phthalo Blue. So the orange is Pyrrole Scarlet and New Gamboge. That looks pretty good. Look at that. Such a nice muted yellow green. Just a little more red to this. see it creates this gray-brown color. Almost like a burnt sienna. Now, how useful is this when you're painting to know what kind of colors you can get? So it's really good just to experiment. Now, what happens if you mix all of your primaries? Well, you'll actually get black. This is a really good way to create black. I like to use phthalo blue and quinacridone gold, which is right around here. Look how deep that is. You can add more blue or more red to get it to shift one way or the other, depending on what other colors you use in your piece. So this is why a lot of artists don't use a black, because mixing the black yourself can really help pull the piece together. Now I've added too much red. Phthalo blue. So that's pretty green, which tells me we need more red. So you can experiment. So now I've added some quinacridone rose. There we go, look at that. That's definitely a black shade. Look how nice and neutral that is. And you can shift this, either make it cooler using more of a cool blue or cool red, or you can make it warmer by including a warm blue or a warm red, or yellows too. You can use the yellows to lighten it up and make it more green. Stay tuned for part 2, which will be creating a color mixing chart. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it, and click the bell to get a notification. If this was helpful for you, please leave me a like and let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!